I'm telling you, Marcus, if she looks at me one more time cross-eyed, I'm gonna gut her like a fish. And then he lie and say he did, but I know he didn't.
Well, how do you know he's lying?
I've gone through a rough life. I've had rough experiences. I'm where I am today. I encourage and empower other people. I have a testimony that helps inspires other people.
In 2015, inside a crowded Los Angeles courthouse, Tasha Smith, the starlet, known for her roles in hit rom-coms and dramas, sat on the edge of a turbulent personal battle.
A thug.
Where is your neighborhood?
187th and Overlook.
She'd just been granted a restraining order against her husband, accusing him of emotional abuse, financial deceit, and even an attempted murder. But the drama didn't end there. He shot back with his own accusations, calling her unstable, violent, and claiming she was hiding dark secrets.
TMZ is reporting that Smith's husband, Keith Douglas, has accused her of booze-fueled fits in which she threatens to kill him.
What followed was a media frenzy, with every private detail about their fractured marriage splashed across headlines. Therapy sessions, explosive texts, and shocking rumors were all laid bare for the world to see. And yet, despite the chaos, Tasha didn't disappear. She kept working, kept acting, and fought to rebuild her reputation.
I felt like if God was around, why did I get abused? Why did I get molested? Why did I get beat? Why did I go through this?
This is the untold story of the public breakdown, private betrayal, and painful rebirth of Tasha Smith, and why her name still commands respect in an industry that tried to write her off. The first time we meet Tasha Smith on screen, she's electric, loud, bold, unforgettable.
Hey, I'll have to tap that.
But rewind the tape, before Hollywood, before the wigs, the red carpets, the applause. Tasha was just a little girl trying to survive Camden, New Jersey. Born into one of the roughest cities in America, Tasha didn't grow up in a safe home. Her mother, addicted to drugs, left chaos in her wake. Some nights, there was no dinner. Some mornings, no peace. And through it all, a little girl had to grow up fast, learning that love could be unstable and safety wasn't guaranteed. Tasha didn't talk about this for years, but when she finally did, she said something raw. Forgiveness is the only reason she's still standing. It wasn't easy. Imagine the same woman who tucked you in at night being the same one who disappeared for days. Tasha carried shame, confusion, and heartbreak. But she didn't let it turn her cold. She chose healing. She chose to become the woman her younger self needed. And in her words, she refused to let trauma write her ending. Her mother's addiction broke parts of her, but it also built her armor. And that armor? It's what got her through the next storm. Tasha Smith thought she had finally found someone who understood her. His name was Keith Douglas. He was charming, spiritual, and presented himself as a man of God. On paper, he seemed like everything she had been praying for. A husband, a partner, someone to build a life with. But once they got married, things changed fast. What looked like a fairy tale on the outside turned into a nightmare behind closed doors. Tasha says the abuse started subtly. First, he was controlling her schedule, then it turned into emotional manipulation. Things like gaslighting, guilt-tripping, and making her feel small. And the abuse wasn't just emotional. According to people close to Tasha, including her own sister, Keith controlled every part of her life. A source close to Tasha's sister revealed even more chilling details. Douglas would reportedly force Tasha into repetitive sessions just so she could have a few hours of peace and quiet. He made aggressive demands about meals, micromanaged her schedule, and drained her emotionally while she was juggling demanding acting roles. The source said, sometimes she would have 3 or 4 scripts she had to memorize in 24 hours. Then came the money. Tasha discovered that Keith had been secretly moving her money around, using her bank account like a personal ATM. Thousands were gone. He was buying designer clothes, expensive gadgets, even giving gifts to other women, including his assistant, who many believe he was having an affair with. All the while, Tasha was still showing up to work, still smiling for cameras, still pretending like everything was okay. By 2014, the cracks could no longer be hidden. Tasha filed for a restraining order. In those court documents, she didn't hold back. She said she was afraid for her life, that his anger could snap at any moment, that if she didn't leave now, she might not get another chance. People close to her confirmed the nightmare. Her own sister backed up her claims, describing how Keith would isolate her and strip away her confidence. There were stories of her breaking down, of being emotionally battered until she could barely speak, of giving up her voice just to keep the peace. It was more than just a toxic relationship. It was survival. And when Tasha took that legal step, it was more than a restraining order. It was her drawing a line in the sand. It was her saying, "I won't die for love." She walked away not just from a man, but from the illusion she had tried so hard to protect. What the world saw was a power couple. What she was living through was a slow, silent breakdown. But walking away was the first breath of fresh air she had taken in years. Just when Tasha thought the worst was behind her, Keith Douglas flipped the script. Out of nowhere, he filed his own restraining order against her. In his version of events, she was the villain. He claimed she had violent, alcohol-fueled outbursts, and even said she made death threats in front of children. To the outside world, it now looked like a messy two-sided war. The headlines didn't show a woman trying to escape, just two people tangled in legal chaos, pointing fingers and trading blows.
TMZ is reporting that Smith's husband, Keith Douglas, has accused her of booze-fueled fits in which she threatens to kill him.
But the truth wasn't balanced. It was much heavier on one side. In 2015, Tasha decided enough was enough. She filed for an annulment instead of a divorce. That move alone said everything. An annulment means the marriage should have never happened in the first place, and soon, the receipts started pouring in. Tasha found out that Keith had lied about nearly every part of his past. He never told her he'd been married multiple times before. He kept quiet about having children from those marriages. Even worse, he had serious financial skeletons in his closet. Unpaid taxes, lawsuits, shady business dealings, and a history of criminal activity. She realized she didn't just marry a toxic man, she married a stranger. When the court looked at the evidence, they agreed. The judge ruled that the marriage had been built on lies and deceit from the start. The whole thing was officially annulled. Legally, it was like it had never existed. But emotionally, the damage was real. Tasha should have been celebrating that victory, finally free. But instead, she was slapped with something that made everything feel even more unfair. She had to pay him spousal support. Somehow, despite the court acknowledging that Douglas had deceived her from day one, Tasha was ordered to pay him spousal support. Not just a little. She was hit with a $50,000 upfront payment and monthly checks to follow. Friends close to her said the whole situation felt like a trap. She was out there on set in Atlanta, still working hard, still chasing roles. But now, with the added weight of knowing that a chunk of her paycheck was going straight into the hands of the man who'd hurt her. She's at work now in Atlanta, a source said at the time. But it's like she's working just to give him money. And for Tasha, it wasn't just about the money. It was about principle. It was about trauma. It was about feeling used and still being punished for it. The woman who lit up screens with her fierce energy now seemed like she was running on fumes. Meanwhile, Douglas made his own statements to the press, claiming, "I loved my ex-wife Tasha Smith deeply. Through this experience, I know what it feels like to literally find myself sleeping with the enemy." His words were cold, calculated, flipping the script yet again, refusing to acknowledge the pain he'd caused. What started as a whirlwind romance had turned into a public courtroom saga. Betrayal, manipulation, heartbreak, all playing out under bright lights and legal scrutiny. And even though the marriage had been erased on paper, its impact on Tasha's spirit couldn't be undone. The spotlight had always been a part of Tasha Smith's world, but behind the scenes, the pressure was building. As her marriage to Keith Douglas crumbled and the courtroom battles piled up, something inside her started to unravel. The emotional weight became too heavy, and she turned to alcohol to cope. In interviews, Tasha didn't hide it. She spoke openly about how she used alcohol to numb the pain, the betrayal, the chaos, the constant attacks on her character. With every sip, she was trying to quiet the noise in her head. But instead of bringing peace, it only fueled the fire. Keith Douglas didn't hesitate to weaponize it. In court, he painted her as unstable, saying she'd lash out and lose control, a woman consumed by her own emotions, unfit to be trusted. He claimed the drinking made her dangerous, unpredictable, even around children. And just like that, the woman who once owned every room she walked into was now being dissected in legal documents and whispered about behind closed doors. Word started to spread in the industry. Whispers about her professionalism turned into questions. Was she okay to work with? Was she showing up on time? Was she still dependable? For a black woman in Hollywood, especially one who had fought tooth and nail for every role she ever had, those kinds of rumors could be career-ending. It wasn't just about bad press, it was about survival in an industry that's quick to turn its back on people dealing with real-life pain. But Tasha didn't let that be the end of her story. Even as the headlines tried to define her by her lowest moments, she made the choice to rise. She got help. She admitted she had a problem, and she decided to do something about it. She leaned into her faith, surrounding herself with people who reminded her of her strength. She threw herself back into work, not just to stay busy, but to reclaim something that had been taken from her. The woman who had once been written off was showing up again, this time more grounded, more honest, and more unshakable than ever. By the end of 2014, just when things seemed like they couldn't get any messier for Tasha Smith, a new controversy hit the headlines. This time, it wasn't about her marriage or court battles. It was about money. She had reportedly been paid $12,000 to speak at a highly anticipated event for Women Veterans Interactive, an organization dedicated to honoring and supporting female military veterans. The crowd expected to see a passionate keynote from a successful actress who had spoken openly about strength, survival, and rising above adversity. But when the day of the event came, Tasha never showed. There was no last-minute announcement, no call to explain, just silence. The organization, blindsided and disappointed, took the issue public. They claimed she had accepted the money but failed to deliver what was promised and never gave it back. For many who had looked forward to hearing from her, it felt like betrayal. This wasn't just any audience. These were veterans, women who had put their lives on the line, and they were left feeling dismissed and disrespected. The backlash came quickly. Social media lit up with criticism. People questioned how someone who had gone through so much pain and hardship herself could turn her back on a group that represented strength and service. It wasn't just about the $12,000. It was about what the money symbolized, a commitment to show up for others. And when she didn't, the silence stung even more. Sources close to her later said that Tasha felt bad about how things played out. But there was no public apology, no attempt to clear the air or make things right, at least not in the way many had hoped. That silence made things worse. For critics, this was just another sign that her personal life was spilling over into her career, making her appear unreliable and careless. In 2019, while exiting Chelsea Studios in New York, Tasha Smith was met by a group of reporters waiting outside. Paparazzi lights were flashing, cameras were already rolling, and the questions hit fast. Everyone wanted to know the same thing: her thoughts on the Jussie Smollett case. He was her co-star on Empire, and at that point, the story had already become a national firestorm. Jussie had claimed he was attacked in what appeared to be a hate crime, but evidence was surfacing that suggested the entire thing might have been staged. The media wasn't letting it go. So when Tasha showed up at that studio exit, reporters knew it was their chance to catch a headline. As she made her way toward a black SUV waiting at the curb, one paparazzo called out directly, asking if she still supported Jussie. Tasha didn't slow down. But just before reaching the car, she turned her head slightly, looked toward the cameras, and snapped, "Kiss my black ass." That moment was caught in full-on video, clean audio, perfect timing. Within hours, it was trending. Blogs reposted it, X blew up, and the clip started running on entertainment shows. It was raw, it was emotional, but more than anything, it was bold. And because she didn't explain it, people started making their own assumptions. Some said she was defending Jussie. Others thought she was tired of being asked. But either way, it was the only thing she said. Then, just days later, something changed. Fans noticed that Tasha had quietly removed old Instagram posts that once showed support for Jussie. One of them had a behind-the-scenes photo from the Empire set with him. Another had a caption encouraging people to believe him. All of them were gone. She didn't make a statement. There was no post explaining the deletion, no follow-up interview. But online, people were already connecting the dots. Screenshots of the deleted posts started circulating. Comment sections were full of people asking what changed. To the public, it looked like Tasha was backing away. Fast. That one clip outside Chelsea Studios became the only thing she left behind. No new updates, no new opinions, just silence. And that silence stood out, especially coming from someone as outspoken as Tasha, the same woman who had no problem speaking up about industry racism or actor mistreatment, was now choosing not to say anything at all. Some people respected it, others called it damage control. But either way, her shift was clear. She was done talking about it. The posts were gone. The subject was closed. Meanwhile, Tasha Smith's personal life was making just as many headlines as her acting career, and not in a good way. Her feud with ex-husband Keith Douglas didn't end quietly, and it definitely wasn't kept behind closed doors. The drama spilled into the public, and both sides were throwing serious accusations. Keith claimed Tasha was sleeping with women, threatening his life, and mentally unstable. He said she was unpredictable and even painted her as dangerous. The tabloids picked it up instantly. It was messy, salacious, and exactly the kind of story that trends fast. But Tasha didn't stay silent. She fired back just as hard. In court documents and public statements, she accused Keith of being controlling, manipulative, and at one point even claimed he tried to kill her. It wasn't just a bitter breakup, it was a war. They both ended up getting restraining orders against each other, which only fueled the media frenzy. The story got picked up by gossip sites, daytime talk shows, and even court-focused programs. The more outrageous the claims, the more attention the story got. And with every headline, Tasha's name stayed in the spotlight. But for all the wrong reasons. As the divorce dragged on, critics started to take sides. Some accused Tasha of being dramatic and dragging the process out longer than necessary. Others questioned her mental state, using Keith's accusations as evidence. It didn't help that the court case exposed parts of her life she probably wanted to keep private. Emails, text messages, therapy records. Everything became fair game. It wasn't just about two people splitting up. It was about tearing each other down, and the public was watching every second of it. People began questioning her judgment, her stability, and even her future in the industry. Casting directors were hesitant. Public opinion was divided. To some, she was a woman in pain. To others, she was just another Hollywood star caught in scandal. But here's the thing. Through all of it, Tasha didn't go away. She didn't fall off the map. She didn't stop showing up. While the court battles raged on, she was still booking roles. She kept showing up on red carpets, kept posting on social media, and most importantly, kept working. Even when the headlines were ugly, she stayed focused on her craft. Today, Tasha Smith is still here, still acting, still producing, and still living her truth. She's directed episodes for major shows like P-Valley and BMF. She's open about her past and uses her voice to empower others, especially women dealing with trauma, addiction, and emotional abuse. Her story is one of survival, of confronting demons, internal and external, And while controversy still clings to parts of her legacy, it's clear she's doing the work to rise above it. Anyway, that's it for this video, folks. Bye.